What's up, guys? Welcome to ZCT 24. In this episode, we're going to talk about the best $50,000 track and daily combo, meaning one car that you can buy roughly brand new or I guess lightly used for 50 grand. So 5 cars in this episode. The new the current GR Supra 3-liter, the Camaro SS1LE, the Civic Type R, either the current FK8 or the upcoming one, the Nissan Z, or the BMW M2 Competition. So between those 5 cars, before we get into it, I just want to say I want all of you guys to go into the comments and rank those 5 cars from your best to your least favorite pick. And before you leave that comment, actually scan the existing comments and figure out if someone already has the same ranking of those 5 cars. And if they do, just go ahead and give a thumbs up to that comment so that we can actually rank and tally which order is the most popular, because I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Before we even go into that, let's talk about, like, if you want an only vehicle for daily and track, what should be your top priorities and like criteria? How about that?
That's true.
That gives us like a framework for judging each one of these cars based on their merits.
Got it. Okay, yeah, for about $50,000, like if it's gonna be a daily, it's got to be pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
For me, dailying it, you're gonna drive, and especially even if you track it, you're gonna be at the track less than 5% of the miles, less than 1% of the miles that you're actually driving as a daily.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's got to be a comfortable ride, and it's got to be something that I want to take out just to the grocery store or whatever.
So comfort, that means good ride quality, like comfortable suspension, comfortable seats, having creature comforts like I don't know, heated seats,
good infotainment,
and Android Auto, and Apple CarPlay, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So comfort. That's one thing for the daily part of the daily track, equation.
Yeah.
If you want it to be a good track car, obviously it needs to be reliable when you're pushing it on a track. So
Yes.
it can't be like a Porsche 997.1 where you push it on track and just things could potentially go south.
Right.
You want it to be good out of the box. Like, you don't want it to have oil starvation issues. You don't want it to overheat. You don't want the brakes to melt. Like, these are all things you should consider.
Right. And then also another, important aspect of just any track car is the platform in terms of the drivetrain, right? So lots of debate, and you get pros and cons of each of these: all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive. But generally for a track car, and I don't even preach this because I drive front-wheel drive, but you want generally a rear-wheel drive car for the track for the most part.
I mean, it comes down to personal preference, but if you're really like serious about improving your skills as a driver, I would say rear-wheel drive is the way to go.
Yeah. And I think the last part is like just the overall general performance of it. So we're talking like the horsepower, and just the raw numbers behind it. So those kind of 4 things are, kind of what we look for. And we understand that the choices here, they all fit on, the certain side of the spectrum. Like the most comfortable being one car, and then the most track ready being on the other side of the spectrum. And so a lot of these options, they fit interesting in between both.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now we can shift back to the commentator's
options.
So let's go to the first one.
Yeah. So I'll start with the first one, the Toyota Supra. And the MSRP on the 3-liter 6-cylinder Supra is like low to mid 50s. I don't know what they're going for with markup and stuff, but let's just assume for the purposes of this convo that you can get it at MSRP.
Yeah.
So you're like slightly above that 50K threshold, but you're getting, in my opinion, a really good car for daily and track, as long as you don't need more than 2 seats, and as long as you don't need a ton of storage space, because the trunk in this car is very small. Like the opening is small, really small.
Okay,
even though it's
I
like
didn't
a
know.
hatch.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Like a GR86 or a BRZ has a way bigger trunk than this car.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
So outside of that limitation in terms of daily drivability, I think it might, I won't get ahead of myself, but I think it's one of the best options on this list.
Really?
Huge aftermarket support for track driving. I see really like well modified ones on track all the time. There's guys like Jackie Ding. He has his Time Attack Supra. Yeah. There's a few guys local in the Bay Area who have like insane full aero, like tuned Supras. Wow. they have already become a very popular track car platform and great for time attack too.
I'm sure, yeah. If you don't want to, so like again, comfortability, track driving ability, it falls definitely more on the track driving side because it doesn't have 4 seats, right?
Doesn't have 4 seats.
Doesn't have 4 seats. Not a lot of creature comfort. Well, I mean, the interior is nice, but not a lot of storage for your daily driving.
Yeah.
So for me, it doesn't rank that high in terms of something I would personally buy. My needs are different. But yeah, the only other thing that obviously holds it back is that it's not a manual car. But that's not to say it's not fast. I mean, these guys, I'm sure, are crushing it out there.
It's freaking fast.
Yeah, I'm sure they're doing really well. So interesting Supra for doing this scale. Definitely more on the track side, less on the comfort.
I will say though, if you can get away with not having more than 2 seats and in a big trunk, and if you're okay, if you're not like super hardcore about track and you just track it occasionally and you're okay with stock suspension, the stock suspension on this car is so comfortable.
Really?
Like when I reviewed the 2020 completely stock one out in LA, I was blown away. It honestly rides like a luxury car. It's so comfortable.
Oh, so that, I mean, yeah, then it's in this rare air where, yes, it's not very dailyable in terms of the like storage size and usability, but in terms of it riding nicely, you usually don't get something that rides nice that is very good on
for
track.
A car that looks like that. It's like low and like small. It usually cars like that, it's going to have a super stiff ride and break your back. But no, the Supra is the exception.
Okay, so yeah, if you're looking for that really fun daily / good track car that you wouldn't mind driving every day, maybe that's your ticket.
Option. Yep. I'll let you hit the next one.
All right, the next one is personally one that I have always gravitated to in terms of track cars, and this is the Camaro SS1LE. I'm not sure what they're going for now, but you can probably... I think
they're, MSRP wise, they're like high 40s.
Yeah, they're around there. And for me, like, I was just enamored by the guys at the track in the souped up Camaros. They were stinking fast, and you get a lot. Like the highest Camaro, like I forget what trim package it is.
The ZL1.
Yeah, the ZL1 for like 75 back in the day, like 75
with
like
over 600, like 650 horsepower or something.
That was like incredible to me, and those guys were zooming. So this is definitely like the track car, and definitely not a good daily driver in my opinion, for a couple reasons. But yeah, the Camaro SS1LE, very good option. It's just, firstly, the interior is to be desired.
No bueno.
Chevy interiors in general are just, I don't know what it is. Just
I'll say that it's at least a big improvement over the previous gen Camaro.
Okay.
But when everything else is improving at a similar or faster rate, so it's still like when you're spending that much money, like almost $50K on a brand new car, you want it to look nice inside.
Yeah.
And it's still like several notches behind the competition.
Yeah, and so and then also the viewing out of the windows, the visibility is absolute crap.
Terrible.
Front and back.
Yeah.
Front and back. So not good on the daily driving side, but really capable on the track side, and like dollar per horsepower, a very, very good deal.
Yeah, you get like over 450 horsepower from a NAV8 for a car less than 50K. That's definitely huge bang for your buck.
And then on that other category, reliability, I mean, for the most part, it's gonna be, reliability not questionable, but at least it's American made and
domestic,
right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg if something goes. You always read the stories about like a Mustang, they can buy like a crated engine for like so cheap, and you're like, what the heck, that's incredible. So overall, I like the SS. I think that's a good option.
I agree with you. If I were more on the track side of it, that would be one of my top picks because it speaks to me. Naturally aspirated engine, 6-speed manual, rear-wheel drive with a LSD. You can run a square tire setup on that car without having to modify the fenders or anything. It's just like, in some ways, it's like a big S2000 with 4 times the torque.
Maybe that's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, 4 times the torque and like a lot heavier.
Yeah,
but it's just like the bigger, beefier version of an S, maybe.
Yeah, and just one more thing I'll add on that because I think it's worth pointing out. The reason SS1LE is a much better daily driver choice than the ZL1LE is because of the suspension. I haven't driven an SS1LE. Still really want to drive one, by the way. I've been asking for this for a long time. Still no one's offered. But I've driven the ZL1 1LE, which is the supercharged version of this car. That car is nutty. You said like, around $75,000.
Yeah, 70. Yeah, mid to high 70s.
Yeah, the bang for the buck in terms of performance is insane with that car.
It's so gross. It's so gross.
Insane. Like it should not be. That car should not be legal. Like to buy. Like for any schmuck to just buy it.
Oh yeah. You think? Luckily, they're not that cheap because they would be like the equivalent of the Mustangs crashing out of the car meets because you barely go. And that, boom.
Yeah.
That is too much torque and speed to handle for your average Joe.
And the reason is not just because of the power. Yes, it has an insane amount of power and torque, but the DSSV dampers. It has a special suspension setup that the regular SS1LE does not have. And it's like some magnetic spool valve dampers. I don't really know how the technology works.
Sure.
But all I can say is it's designed for the track, and if you try to drive it on a bumpy road, good luck putting power down. When I reviewed it on like a fairly tight, bumpy road. But I've driven other higher power cars on that road, and it was like okay. But this car was like, I was scared for my life. Every time I hit the gas pedal, I was like, we're probably gonna die.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Camaro SS, very cool car. Definitely on the more trackside orientation of our scale. But I think it's pretty cool. Yeah. So what about this next one?
The next one, Civic Type R. So all I can really say about this car, and I've said a lot of stuff about this car, having driven many of them and tracked a few of them as well. Super capable track car if you take care of the cooling problem.
Right.
Amazing brakes. I think the suspension is more than adequate for track. Really, the only thing you have to do to it, in my opinion, to have a good time with it on track consistently, is throw a better set of pads on it and then upgrade the cooling, oil cooler, bigger intercooler, and all that stuff. On the daily driver side of it, it's, I would say, easily the best daily driver out of these options.
Right.
It's a hatch. It's practical. It's got a 4-cylinder engine. You can get 30 miles per gallon on the freeway. It's a Honda. Parts are going to be affordable. And the stock suspension rides great. It's got adaptive dampers. But my only problem with this car, and this is like it's a very opinionated thing for me to say, but I will not buy a front-wheel drive track car. And that's literally the only reason I won't buy this car, other than like the questionable rear end.
Well, what if it was all-wheel? Will you not buy an all-wheel drive car? I can't remember. Are you still on the fence of that, or that's more?
I'm
like
on the
just
fence about that, but I would much rather not.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, for me personally, I gravitate to because I have a hot hatch. I have a Fiesta ST.
Yeah.
For me, how I see it in terms of the line of niceness of hot hatches specifically, you have Fiesta ST firstly, because that's like the cheapest one you can get. Rough on the interior, but it drives really well at the track. And then you can get like a Veloster Turbo, which is kind of like the next step.
For Veloster N.
Veloster N, yeah. And then the kind of the grail for the front wheel drive hatches is the Civic Type R.
Currently, I would say it's
probably the best front wheel drive track and daily car you can buy for the money.
I would say easily.
Yeah.
Hands down.
So like for me, like if I were to progress and get something for the track and still be front wheel drive, I gravitate heavily towards the Civic Type R.
Yeah.
Looks aside, hopefully the new one, like we talked about it in the couple episodes before, hopefully the new one, the looks look a little more mature, in my opinion.
Which they do.
Which they do. We've seen like the photos of everything, but yeah, I gravitate to the Type R. I think it's a cool car, and I don't mind front wheel drive. It's easier to drive front wheel drive, and it's, I mean, not like you're less likely, but I feel like if you're in trouble in front wheel drive, it's less risky. You're not going to spin out as easily because you can either just apply more throttle for more,
just straighten it out.
Yeah, straighten out, or you just let off a little bit, and you're not going to be in
huge
trouble.
Amounts of snap oversteering.
Exactly. So I gravitate to that one.
And just to be clear, this car doesn't drive bad. Like in all the front wheel drive cars I've driven, this is the one that drives the least like a front wheel drive. So it's like so good in so many ways. But
You just can't get. It's like some people who can't get over driving a manual in auto, right?
Yeah,
same kind of
it's like
same
just
thing.
it's like a deal breaker for me because I need power oversteer in my life, and you're just not going to get that from a front wheel drive car.
Yeah. So I know we have a couple more cars to go to, but what do you think? Tell us in the comments. For $50,000, a good daily and a good track car combo car in one. So Type R is more on the more. It's still very capable, but not as capable as the rear-wheel drive SSs or the Supras, but way better. Well, way better daily than the SS at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll let you hit this next one, and then I'll hit the last one, which is not on this list.
Okay. So this next one that the commenter asked was the new Z, the new four. Wait, what is it?
It's just called the Z. People
Isn't
were
it supposed to be like a 400?
That's what I was hoping for because it just makes way more sense. But whatever.
Anyway, it's called the new Z. So this could probably bleed into a conversation about the Z platform itself.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I feel like it's a pretty capable car. It's rear-wheel drive, has a lot of power, but it's really, really heavy. That's always been kind of the thing with the Zs. I think the 350 is actually a good balance.
Yeah.
But it gets heavier and heavier and faster. But it's just not for me. I know it has a good aftermarket, and it has a good community around it.
Yeah.
And we have a friend who even drove a Z, and was pretty fast, albeit at that. It's just for me, it's just not, one that I gravitate to personally. So what do you think about the Z?
On the topic of weight, I don't know the exact weight, but I think that it's roughly the same weight as a 370, which was roughly the same weight as a 350. Like they're all like within like 100-ish pounds of each other. So it doesn't have that going against it. In that it's,
anymore.
It's not like
a
way heavier car than the old one.
Yeah. Okay.
And it has way more power. So 400 horsepower in its turbo. It's gonna have way more torque, and you're gonna be able to tune it a lot easier. So like objectively speaking, you'll be able to get a lot of power and probably some pretty good lap times out of it. My only problem with this is kind of like my problem with the previous Zs, is that it doesn't drive as exciting as some of the other front engine rear wheel drive cars out there. Like if you remember when the 350Z came out, that was the same time that basically the S2000 was transitioning from AP1 to AP2, so kind of during that period. And like as a driving machine, the S2000 wins hands down for me every single time. And then when you look at the 370Z, the generation after the 350, that was around like 2008, 2009, right? And then that was right around the time that the S2000 was gone, but then you were starting to get cars like the BMW E92 M3 and other options from the Euro manufacturers. And when you compare those two cars, I would take the E92 hands down every single time. So it's not that these generations of Zs are bad cars.
No, yeah.
It's just that they always feel to me like in terms of driving feel and pleasure, they're always like one step behind the competition.
Yeah. Like and it's not like anything like you can like objectively say. It just seems, right? It just seems to be a step down for some reason.
When you get, I've driven a 350, I've driven a 370. When I get behind the wheel, there's just a few things I'm like, this is just, it could be better. Like the transmission's kind of clunky and high effort. The way it handles, it's like very easy to drive, and you can oversteer the thing all day long, but it doesn't give you like a really exciting engine sound. The way it revs it's like it revs pretty high, but it doesn't give you that, doesn't really reward you for revving it out to redline. And it feels like it's a little too high up. It feels a little bit more heavier than I want. Everything is about that car is like a B+. It's like a epitome of a B+ student. Whereas like an E92 M3 compared to a 370Z, if the 370 is a B+, the E92 is like a solid A.
Right.
And then the S2000, A+.
S.
A++++.
It's an S.
Yeah.
So interesting that was brought up. I didn't know they're not 50K, right?
I think they're going to be around 40. I don't think they announced the price for sure yet, but it's going to be around 40. And the thing is, it's going to be based on the 370Z platform, from what most people can tell.
Okay. So there's going to be, an aftermarket for it. So, yeah, like you say, and this is, I know we're like, no offense to the people who are in the Z platform. I know we're ragging on it, but it does just seem like it's playing B plus to a lot of the A cars out there.
I could be wrong, but if it's true that it's mostly based on the 370Z platform, like same transmission, and if it's true that it uses basically the same engine that's in like the Infinity models right now, the 3-liter turbo, it's gonna be good, but not great. And that's, I feel like, the legacy that the Z has sort of had in its past couple generations.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is just it's a good car, but it just had a lot going against it during the times it was released.
Yeah, the competition was just always a step ahead, in my opinion.
And I just feel like it's kind of, the Nissan in itself, it's kind of losing as a car brand itself overall. And they're kind of, I don't want them to be the next Mitsubishi, but they're kind of trending that way.
On that track. Yeah.
So that's another conversation.
Yeah. So the last car we wanted to hit, and just real quick, is a BMW M2 competition. Because I know you're not going to be able to get that for $50K brand new, but even the MSRP is like more in the mid 50s to high 50s, and then with markup you're talking like 60 plus. But it's conceivable to at least buy like a lightweight used.
You can buy a used
M2
one
comp for around 50 to 55.
I think. Yeah. We've seen it.
I like that car a lot. Not the base M2, like the old M2, but the actual M2 competition.
Okay.
It has a detuned version of the F82 M4 engine. So it sounds better, it revs higher than the base M2. The platform is really fun. Front engine, rear wheel drive, manual transmission. You can get in dual clutch if you want, which is a really great option. Slide it around every corner all day long. And it's fast. And it's comfortable.
It has
a nice interior.
4 seats, right?
It has a usable back seat.
Usable back seat?
2-door, but like the back seat is actually usable.
Like it's not like like a 911 back seat.
Not like twice the back seat space as a 911.
Okay. Yeah. I when I saw that, I was like, man, I know the commenter didn't bring that up. I was like, M2 looks pretty dang good, and German interiors generally are pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think it's especially relevant because before I bought my 911 last year, I was thinking I could buy like a lightly used or even a brand new car to fit that daily driver and track car combo like
niche.
Yeah,
we were talking about that.
And the two cars I was really considering was a M2 competition or the SS1LE. And between those two, I was like going back and forth quite a lot, but I was kind of leaning more towards the M2 because it's way more comfortable daily.
Right, yeah. I mean, the SS1LE, the interior, man.
The interior and the visibility, no bueno.
Yeah. And sidebar on the interiors of Chevys. Until like the C8, like I feel like all Corvette interiors were not even that good either. So yeah, let us know if that rings true to you. The interiors of the American Chevys, like your personal opinions.
I think the C7 was a big improvement over the C6, but then the C8 came out and just blew the C7 out of the water.
Yeah. So they're getting better.
But
still, yeah. Like the M2, coming back to that, I just think that's like a very good, because here's our scale again. And if you get a car that's in the middle, you're compromising, on both comfort and trackability. And, you don't get too far to each side of the spectrum. But the M2, I feel like it reaches the furthest on both comfort and
I completely
trackability.
agree with that.
Yeah, so like Civic Type R, maybe it comes out this far to each side of the scale, but the M2 gets the furthest of both worlds. It is a little more expensive, but that's a perfect balance, and that is pretty much, if you had the money and if you wanted something that's really good at both that doesn't compromise as much as like a Type R, I think the M2 is a good choice.
I pretty much agree with that. And I think let's end this with let's rank all the cars we talked about.
Okay.
For each of us. So I guess I'll go first. So I would say out of those options
with the M2?
With the M2. So Supra, SS1LE, Type R, Nissan Z, or M2. Out of those options, assuming there's no manual Supra yet, assuming the auto is the only
because that
option,
would be an auto pick.
That would be an auto pick for me, manual Supra. But I would pick M2 competition first. And then I would actually go Supra, which is crazy because it's automatic. But
Yeah, but you've driven them, so you
I've
kind of know
driven
what
it,
it's
so I
about,
really like it.
Yeah, yeah.
The only reason I'm picking it over the SS1LE is because I haven't driven an SS1LE.
I see.
But I think hypothetically, like in my theoretically, I mean, the SS1LE would come third for me
Okay.
because it's rear-wheel drive and natural aspirated and manual and all that good stuff. And then between the Type R and the Z, I think I have that as a tie.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think the Type R I actually prefer the Type R in 99%
But
of
it's
its
front
ways,
wheel.
but it's front wheel.
Okay,
And so
you
that actually
front
makes
wheel
it a tie.
elitist. No. Okay, so for me, I weirdly, because I don't have that front wheel drive, bias.
Yeah.
It's a toss up between the M2 and the Type R for me first, because I'm thinking about it more for the daily drivability of it. And
Okay.
so I don't want to be dailying,
A a tank.
like a Supra or a tank, or like a
Yeah.
Camaro. So yeah, the M2 and the Type R for me is kind of where I rank the first two. Next, it would probably be the Supra. Surprisingly,
Okay.
I think that'd be a really cool car to own, and it just doesn't have 4 seats and a really small trunk. I didn't know the trunk was that small.
And
It
no
kinda
manual.
and no manual. Then I would get the SS for me personally. I think
Okay.
that, but it's not very comfortable. But you'll get a lot of it out of the track, and the visibility is
I
pretty.
think
crappy.
comfort-wise, it might be okay. I haven't driven one, but it has the magnetic dampers.
Okay,
So it
okay.
might
So
be
maybe
okay.
it's a little more comfortable than I'm leading on to be.
Yeah.
So next would be the Camaro, and then for me at the bottom, I don't know. I just don't gravitate towards the Z.
Yeah.
Just personally,
I'm the same
So,
way.
yeah, I think the Type R is a really cool car. It's kind of like for the Grail for front wheel drive for me personally.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the most reliable out of all of these.
Yeah.
Because it's a Honda.
Yeah.
And that I put a lot of weight into that.
We didn't even really bring reliability into the equation, but now that you bring it up, yeah, that gives the Type R like a
Yeah,
step
probably a
up.
few bumps. Maybe the Z will be just as reliable though.
Yeah, it
we
could
don't
be.
know. And I think 370s are pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty
But
good.
yeah, I just don't gravitate towards the Z. But so that's my ranking. Maybe if you guys want to rank it down below, you can, or just like
Yeah.
I said, comment on what you think is a good, track and daily car, and why, and then maybe throw in the budget in there as
Yeah,
well. So-
I think what would be cool is if you guys, before you go in the comments and like type out your ranking for those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, see if someone already check the comments and see if someone else already has that specific order that you have. And if you do, just give it a thumbs up. That way, like we can see,
or you can agree with reply to say
reply and agree,
I
and just
agree,
give it a thumbs up so we can actually tally the number of votes. I'm really curious what people think.
Yeah, of the you'll list them in the video.
Yep.
So
Yep.
maybe do you want to do a bit? Also, okay. So that being said, I think we're good to go here.
Yeah,
We've exhausted this
we've
topic.
exhausted this one.
But it was a fun one. It was a fun one. So
fun one.
great question. Keep answering or keep firing away questions that you want us to talk about. So hope you guys enjoyed that one.
Yep.
And we'll see you in the next one.